Hey kids, this week we're going to show you I think 3 recipes of different things that came out of our garden. And the first one we're going to do is we're going to make some grits. And this is some of the corn we grew last year. And you've seen out in the garden the really tall corn. You'll see it in our garden update again this week.
And these are what I call field corn. The kind of corn that you don't eat off the cob because it's kind of tough, and you let it dry and then you grind it up and you make cornmeal.
And this is a type of corn that is grown for making grits and cornmeal, and you can make tortillas out of it and all sorts of good things.
Mark, can you eat that corn raw?
No, this is hard. If you chewed on that, it would maybe break your tooth. It's very hard. So we have to grind that up before we cook it. And who's had grits before? Probably a lot of you. I hadn't had grits till I moved to Virginia, but now I love them and we eat them all the time, and we grow corn just so we can make grits. So this is that corn. We ground it coarsely. So you can see it's kind of in big chunks.
So coarsely means?
Coarse means not fine, but
bigger pieces.
Not whole.
Yeah.
So that really wouldn't be good for any type of cooking, not even cornmeal. For cornbread, that's too big. So I'm gonna grind this again, and we'll get it down to a nice size for cornmeal. This is our corn grinder. It's an old-fashioned type of grinder. It's hand-powered. I'm gonna put some in there, and then I'm gonna start grinding it. So I'm just checking how finely that's being ground, and I think it's good enough for grits. For grits, you want it to be kind of like a coarse sand, almost like a play sand. At least that's how I like my corn for grits. So we need about 1 cup for this recipe. So now that we have the corn ground, I'm going to measure out 2 cups of water. Put that in our pan, put that on a high heat, lid on it, and wait for it to boil. Alright, thanks to the magic of television, we now have boiling water. And I'm going to turn the heat down to medium, and I'm going to add 1 cup of the ground corn.
1 cup, so that's like half as much as water.
Yep. So you want a ratio of 2 parts water to 1 part of your cornmeal.
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
So if you had a half a cup of cornmeal, how much water would you need then? Kids, do you know? Maybe you have to get into 4th or 5th grade before you learn that, but it's called a ratio.
So if you had half cup, you need 1 cup of water.
1 cup.
So we've got 2 cups water, 1 cup of corn. I'm going to pour that in while I start to stir. And you want to stir so that you don't get clumps. So you add it a little bit at a time. That helps you keep the clumping down. And then you want to keep stirring. Break up the clumps with your spoon.
So at our house we have a whisk that we use for that job sometimes.
Whisk would be good too. Just keep working on those clumps, stirring. If you don't stir, it's going to start to stick, and then it will burn. And then you'll have really kind of crummy tasting grits. It takes about 3-5 minutes to get the corn fully cooked.
Yeah.
I usually make grits with like a grilled steak or grilled chicken, and I make a gravy and maybe some sauteed vegetables. So I'll put the grits and then the meat and then the gravy on top.
Wow.
That's really good.
Wow.
Or I'll make them as a side dish with cheese and garlic and onions.
So we usually have them the traditional way, which is for breakfast with some eggs and maybe some sausage.
Alright, so I'm at a medium heat now, and it's starting to really get thick, so I'm going to turn it down to medium-low so that it doesn't cook too fast. And now I'm just going to kind of let it slowly cook while I keep stirring. And over here I've got about 2.5 tablespoons of butter. You can do anywhere from 1 to 3 depending on your preference, but I always add more butter than less because not only is butter delicious, it's very good for you.
Really?
Yeah, butter's full of minerals, vitamins, and healthy fats. So we've got our butter in there. It's just going to slowly melt as I stir it. And the butter is important because it helps give the grits a nice creamy flavor. And like I said, it adds a little bit extra nutrition in there. So it'll actually help you stay more full when you eat the grits because of all those fats. Some people will cook their grits with milk instead of water, and that'll make them even more filling and even more rich and creamy. Some people do half water, half.
If you add the milk, though, you have to really watch out for burning them.
Yeah, because milk burns very easy. Okay, look at that. The butter's all the way dissolved.
It's gone.
Oh, a little bit more. We'll just leave that while I get some salt.
So my grandchildren used to not like us to stir things like butter and syrup into things because they thought they were gone. They'd like to see them on top.
I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to stir it in. I like to add salt in stages. So I'll add a little bit and then I'll taste. And then if it's not enough salt, I'll add more. This is going to make about enough grits for 2 hungry people or 3 or 4 not very hungry people.
Or one famished person.
Or, yeah, one very, very hungry person. Needs a little more salt. Now, salt is a seasoning, which means it helps bring out the flavor of everything you're adding it to. So without the salt, it might taste a little bit bland. When I add the salt, you can actually taste the corn and the butter a lot better. So I think that's going to do it. Just stirring it in, still on a low, medium heat. At home, I would just lick off the spoon, to be honest. But
no.
Since we're here in the kitchen, I'm just going to do that. All right, these are perfect. I'm going to turn it off, and they're ready to serve. All right, here's our finished grits. We're going to serve them into this elegant brown boat. Now at this stage you could add cheese, you could add some herbs, you could add all kinds of flavors to this, or you could just eat it like that.
Goes awful good with eggs for breakfast.
Oh yeah, that's that. And while I start to stir, you want to stir so that you don't get clumps. So you add it a little bit at a time. I hadn't had grits till I moved to Virginia, but now I love them, and we